discussing the theme campaign finance laws in East Africa have monetized politics. And with me, I have five panelists that have been selected from the entire East African community region. That is, we have someone coming from Kenya, and you know what's happening in Kenya. We have someone coming from Tanzania and someone coming from in our neighborhood here in Rwanda, and we will be taking the detour of exactly how are we faring as a bloc, as countries in regulating the effect of money in politics, especially electoral politics. Before we start, allow me to set some house rules for the benefit of our viewers, but also and participants, but also encourage and welcome everybody to join us on our online platforms. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. You can be able to join in and be part of the conversation and send your comments, send your questions at that point in time when we open it up for discussions. With me, I have 5 panelists that I'll be introducing in a short while. But before I do so, let's do a bit of house cleaning. I'll be giving each panelist 4 minutes maximum to lay the context, and then we will be able to go into the Q&A, and after the Q&A, we will open up this discussion to the rest of our viewers who are following the discussion. It's a very good morning. It's exactly 4 minutes past 2 East African time, and we are live in Kampala. Our first panelist, who I will start recognizing according to those who are currently logged in. Our first panelist is Kenneth Masime. Kenneth Masime is a development professional and executive director at Center for Governance and Development, which is an NGO that strives for an equitable and democratic society in Kenya. In 2007 general elections, Kennedy was able to be part of the coalition that documented and exposed campaign finance malpractices by candidates and political parties. And he has equally been an active member of the Election Observation Group, ELOG. And we are very aware of what's happening in our neighborhood in Kenya. I think in about 7 months, Kennedy, you'll be able to update us on what's happening in Kenya. But for now, we are most welcome. Karibuni, it's good to have you on set. Kennedy, I think you are muted.
Okay, I'm now on. You can I begin?
You are on, sir. Just say hello to the audience and then we'll proceed.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
Great. Thank you, Kennedy. And we also we have Mupigani Apollinaire, who is joining us from Rwanda and is currently the executive director for Transparency International, the Rwanda chapter. He is a professional he has worked for more than 20 years in this area of non-governmental institutions. He's a member of the TI Strategy 2030 Task Force. He is also a governance and government expert, and he holds a master's degree from, I hope I pronounced this right, Newcastle University, Switzerland, and a diploma in international practices management of Applied University in Western Switzerland. You are most welcome, Gani.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, great pleasure to be part of the panel.
It's great. Our next panelist, because I'm recognizing according to who is on set, if I can recognize those that are joining us shortly, is no other than Henry Muguzi, who is the campaign finance expert and the current executive director of Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring. He's a democracy expert with an anti-corruption activist. He's also a researcher and they're specialized in this area of money in politics. He's also part of he has observed international elections and has been part of the several election observer missions across the world. He holds a master's in public admin and management, and a Bachelor of Arts in political science and public admin. Most welcome.
Thank you, Felix. An honor for me to be here, and I hope we shall have a very insightful next 2 hours. Thank you.
Okay, we expect to have Honorable Jova Kamateka to join us. He's part of the panel, and I can introduce her in her absence for the benefit of the audience. For those of you, she's from Uganda, and she's a former woman MP of Mitoma district. She served for 2 terms, 2015 to 2020 and 2020 to 2016 to 2020, when she lost. But she has been in parliament for 2 terms, and she's the first chairperson for Human Rights Committee for 7 years, who was a lady. So it's also important to observe that she holds an honorary doctorate on human rights and administration from the Commonwealth University. She'll be joining us very soon, and then we'll be able to recognize her. Our other panelist, who is also not yet on set, is Israel Ilunde, who is the founder and executive director of Youth Partnership countrywide. Yes, Honorable Jova has joined us. It's good to have you. The founder and executive director of the Youth Partnership countrywide, that is Israel Ilunde, will be joining us. But let me introduce him. He is the civil society activist working on empowerment of youth in Tanzania, and is the executive director and the founder. Is also has over 2 decades of engaging in development work, governance, and deepening local democracy in Tanzania. He's an electoral democracy expert, and equally he holds a postgraduate diploma in governance and leadership from Jomo Kenyatta University, and is also a graduate from development studies from Chimanzi Development Studies Center of Ireland. When he joins us, I'll be able to recognize him in a short while.
Israel has joined.
Israel has joined. Israel, it's good to have you. You are most welcome. Can you hear us?
Yes, I am around, and thank you very much. And I wish we would be together. Thank you.
It's good to have you on set.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we are fully constituted, I need to again remind the participants of the house rules that I'll be a bit strict on time, so you'll allow me to exercise that.
You have given me a chance to greet the viewers.
Oh, Honorable, you can say hello to the audience now that you're on set.
Thank you, Felix. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. We have to fight for our rights.
Good afternoon, Honorable. Pleasure to have you around.
Nice to be here indeed. Thank you.
Okay, so I was just giving a bit of housekeeping rules for this discussion to make meaning and benefit the audience, and just to let everybody who is watching us know that we will be having a session for your comments and your contribution to the discussion, but you can also type them and post them. I'll be able to pick them and have them shared with the audience and the rest of the panelists. But in the meantime, we are going to be giving each panelist 4 minutes maximum to provide the context of what's happening in their country concerning the issues to do with finance, campaign finance laws, and how are we regulating or legislating on this matter, especially looking at the context of the country. And I want to start with Honorable Jova Kamateka. I want to start with Kenya, but let me start with Honorable Jova Kamateka. Then I'll come to Kenya to paint for us the context of commercialized electoral politics in Uganda, and how it affects women participation from your perspective as a former politician.
Thank you, but I don't think you are being fair to me, because this is what my presentation is going to be about. But anyway, there is so much. People are just free to spend money anyhow, and there is so much corruption. So it has affected the, I would say, even the quality of the representatives that are elected into parliament. And really, it is no longer the people's choice. We are now having personal representatives because it is those who are able to buy their way into these positions. It is not for each and every one. We have highly qualified and capable members of parliament and other politicians in their seats, but still they are all bothered by this unprecedented amounts of money that one needs to put in. So we lack integrity. We lack integrity, and it affects the masses. The people may have their choice of a leader that they want to elect into a certain position, but money is poured in almost at the last minute, and it derails what they had in their mind as their primary choice. So really, it is no longer now people using their rights to elect leaders of choice, but it is going according to the money available. For example, women leaders, I know I'll be talking about how this affects women leaders. You know, they are supposed to be elected by women electoral colleges, but you know, men find it easy to buy off these electoral colleges, take them in some resort, pay them handsome allowances, so as to have women of their choice be elected into these positions. So it is really disheartening, and it is disheartening. And for me, what I'm worried about what it does to the pride of the people in their institutions and eventually in their government and in their country, because they know that they are not electing leaders of choice, but they are electing leaders who are able to pay their way through.
I'll come back to you with specific questions that speak to your experiences. But let me now go to Kenya. We all know that all Action Live Camera is focused on Kenya's upcoming elections, and it would be good to have Kennedy Masimi paint for us a picture of context of what's happening in Kenya in light of the discussion.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, in Kenya, we have a problem with corruption historically. So we find a situation where in 2002, when we got an opposition government taking over from KANU back then, they engaged in a lot of anti-corruption reforms. So I can say in terms of campaign financing or political financing generally, there are over 8 legislations. But despite all that, you could say that corruption was almost inversely proportional to the number of legislation that was coming in. And corruption is a vice that is responsible for a number of governance disadvantages. One, it creates inequality in the democratic process. Women, people who don't have money, people living with disabilities are disadvantaged when it comes to now electoral campaigning. It undermines oversight institutions in the sense that people who get to man those institutions get there through corrupt mechanisms, and therefore those institutions are undermined in turn. Corruption also destabilizes the macroeconomics. Remember in 1992, when we first had our first multi-party elections, the aftermath then was serious inflation that really the economy is yet to recover from. We also find that corruption fuels insecurity and even crime. The monitoring we did in 2007 revealed that things like castle rustling, bank haste, etc. peak around the election period. So that is again this background that we came up with the Election Campaign Financing Act, especially in the context of a new constitution in 2010, that's now supposed to come up with mechanisms, the institutional framework and mechanism for monitoring campaign expenditure, the mobilization of resources themselves, etc. But you might know that we came up with this law in December 2013. It was supposed to commence on January 2014. By 2017 elections, its operationalization was suspended. And now we are approaching another election. And you remember that in 2017, that's when we had the elections. Now we are approaching another election in 2022. It's not going to be implemented. So you can imagine the kind of context that we are. And corruptible campaign financing would proceed unabated, and the legislation is there and it's not being implemented because of how it's being put in place by Parliament and politicians generally. I think I'll stop there for now.
Sure, you've done justice to it. And the last we checked, I think a group of civil society actors had gone to court over that. Shall come back to that. But next, we have, let me bring in here our colleague from Tanzania. We know you have a good law which that speaks to legislating on campaign financing. Israel Alonde, can you give us a context of Tanzania?
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and thank you very much, Henry, for the invitation. And I think I will use my 4 minutes effectively. Is it that I'm using the 4 minutes now?
Yes.
First of all, I want to say there is no election that can be done without money. Money is used in most of the electoral activities, and we will be cheating ourselves if we think campaigns and elections are done without use of money. But also, our concern is the reasonable amount of money that can be used or resources to be used during the election, morally and with discipline according to the law. In Tanzania, we enacted the 2010 Election Expenses Act, which was followed by the regulation in the same year, Election Expenses Regulations. And then in 2015, but also in the same year, the Election Expenses Maximum Amount Order, how much money can be spent. That was 2015. And we have seen characteristics of monetized politics, not only in Tanzania, but across many countries, but things like vote buying, especially in intra-party nominations, and somehow during general elections, with some cases, or those are not well reported due to political circumstances that you need to be well informed. You have the right to speak, but you are not sure after you have spoken if that right remains there, and how will it be. So, but also the characteristic has been many of the youth, women, and people with disabilities afraid to go into electoral constituencies, fearing that the powerful people who have money may not be able to, they cannot defeat them. But also the enforcement of the law has been done. The forms have been prepared. People do fill forms and submit to the relevant authorities, declaring the amount of money they have, they want to, the amount of money expected to be spent, and so on. But then after the election, rarely you hear about the cases that have been filed by either by PCCB or by fellow candidates on if a person was involved in the monetary use during the elections. But the challenges has been NEC, the National Electoral Commission, which is the actually is the electoral management body, is not actually responsible with enforcing the election expenses law. The body that oversees the law is called the Registrar of Political Parties, which is actually rare across Africa and also in the world, but it is done, and they normally do. But also the registrar of political parties is an office established, somehow I think independent, but it's at the risk of, because of its appointment nature, may not be able to follow and actually sanction the powerful politicians, because this is the body just also appointed by the president, and the president sometimes is also a candidate. So there is a question whether this organ can be very powerful and be able to sanction people who go against the law. And I think finally, as I said, there is a problem and challenge within intra-party nominations, because there is no uniformity, whether you do it as a normal nominations of nominees, or even when you do the women candidate, the special seats. So there is no uniformity. So that may raise a question about how things can be done. So maybe if later you raise some question, I may be able to go through and answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Israel. Really, you've done justice to giving us an understanding overview of the law in Tanzania. Let's cross over to our neighborhood here in Rwanda, and I hope my good friend is online. Mupigani, are you there? Can you help us understand how it is done in Rwanda? We have the similar law like the way we've seen in Kenya and Tanzania. Forget the challenges of enforcement, but how is it like in Rwanda? Mupigani?
Yeah, thank you, Felix, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I followed carefully the experience from other countries, but in Rwanda, probably due to our history, especially the recent 1994 genocide, the political system is somehow different in a way that Rwanda, as a country, politician chose to work together in a way that though there is diversity in political parties, but those approved political parties are gathered in a coalition called Political Parties Forum, where they discuss matters, emerging issues politically. They first of all discuss them within or inside this forum of political parties. When it comes to elections, it's different to other countries. Here in Rwanda, it's rare or impossible to run as an independent, though the law provides for it. But political parties make a list of their candidates. So by doing so, you are running under your affiliation, political parties. So the difference is that the financial capacity of political parties are different. There are some who are really financially equipped, others who are struggling. But the law in Rwanda provides that all political parties accepted can benefit the grant from the government. In Rwanda, the funding of political parties is done domestically. You can't, it's not allowed to get funds from foreigners or outside donors. You have to mobilize funds among your members, or on the other hand, government provides you funds. So looking to the context, it's really probably very low. The risk of corruption as an individual when you want to get a leadership position, but the challenge is probably at the transparency and accountability within the political parties, the appointment of those who will represent the parties. It's there where we some loopholes. In addition, in Rwanda, all political parties are declaring their assets on an annual basis. And this go under scrutiny by the Office of Ombudsman. And there is another requirement. If you get a donation or a donation, be it public figures from a political party, you have to declare it to the Office of Ombudsman if the amount go beyond $1,000. So you have to declare. So in nutshell, in Rwanda, the system somehow is limiting the space for individuals to be connected to the citizens to gain the votes. But inside, probably it's where someone could analyze and assess the accountability and how the system is built to avoid probably the nepotism and the favoritism among the political parties members who could be appointed to represent the party in the election. Let me stop here, Felix.
Oh, thank you so much, Mbigani. Very interesting. A lot of things I've learned about my neighbor here in Rwanda on how the politics are arranged, especially electoral politics. Let me first make this announcement that we are encouraging everybody to go and click on that link and register if you really want to be part of this discussion, but also to keep track of those that have been part of this engagement. Help us, please click on the link and register your presence. That will be very, very appreciated of you. And also, don't forget to join in via our Facebook Facebook account, and also we are live on all our social media accounts. For example, you can be part of this discussion on YouTube. We are live on YouTube, and you can also place your comment or question, and we'll be able to handle it at some point. Now that we have a fair understanding across board from other countries, let me come to Henry concerning Uganda, because like I think Rwanda, also Uganda doesn't have a law on campaign financing, but what is the context like, and what does that imply on our democracy? Henry?
Thank you very much, Felix, and of course, colleagues from other countries. A pleasure to be here. Now, when you cut around the electoral legal framework for Uganda, you'll discover that we have provisions that speak to public financing of political parties. We have provisions that speak to misuse of public resources during campaigns. We have provisions on voter bribery during election campaigns. But what we do not have is a law that speaks about campaign finance. So in that regard, Uganda is completely devoid of a law on campaign finance. On campaign finance. Now, when we read the Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also Article 25 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, these two provisions enjoin state parties, and Uganda is one of them, to ensure that they hold elections that reflect the free expression of the will of the electors or of the people. But in the case of Uganda, elections have ceased to be an expression of the will of the people and have now turned into an expression of the power of money. Now, elections here suffer from a monster of commercialized politics, where political parties and candidates with more money often win. In the recent elections we held in January 2021, about 85% and more of the candidates that took the day are the same candidates that were spending more than their competitors. So because the ballot paper has been commoditized, the prospect of having free consent of the citizens in an election has dimmed or has been subdued. So Ugandan voters, and I guess the same could be in Kenya, do not think about elections deeply or rationally, and elections are about leaving a share, leave with me a share of what you're going to earn. So when you go to political office, you can recoup your money. Now, the downside is that when money starts to manufacture voter consent, it creates what I can call cosmetic democracy. It weakens the state, and the weakened state ultimately crumbles often into captivity. No wonder these days Kenya and Uganda are talking about issues. The narrative is state capture. And of course, at the bottom of this captivity is the monster of grandiose corruption. So the downside again is that the state can become delegitimized. And one day we may experience a situation here where in one of our countries, there could be a failed state. All right. Now, although voter bribery is prohibited here, like I said, the practice forms, the practice takes many forms of voter inducement, and what we know as clientelism as a form of corruption, which we are often used to buy voter support. Now, it does seem as though that the spirit of partisanship has not sunk well into the minds of Ugandan voters, which is why if someone woke up in the morning supporting a particular party, he or she can easily be swayed to vote for another party or another candidate on the basis of money. So that is where we are, and a situation where money is being used to control voter consent, a situation where money is being used to undermine the principle of people expressing, of an election expressing the free will of the people, is a situation that is worrying. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Henry, for painting a picture in Uganda. Of course, we will come back to some of the things you've raised about the controlled voter consent. If you are just joining us, we are live from Kampala, and we are having our third webinar series under the theme Campaign Finance Laws, and we are asking ourselves the question: is East Africa ready to curb monetized politics? And with me, I have a representative from Kenya, Kennedy Nasime, who has joined us live from Kenya. We have also a colleague from Tanzania, Israel Irundi, who has joined us. And also we have our colleague from Rwanda, Gani Aponia, who has joined us. And from Uganda, we have two colleagues. One is Henry, who has just been sharing the context of Uganda. And also we have with us Honorable Joe Makamateka, who is sharing with us our experience.